Chiefs are looking for a get-right game as they look to seal this AFC title one more time this week against the Denver Broncos. How do they make up for that? Where do they go? And does it get done? Welcome to Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. It is Red Friday, another week to get right. A lot coming that's going to get taken out on the Denver Broncos. I am pretty sure we're going to get into the nuts and bolts, how they get it done. And they got somebody back today, at least mostly, that we're going to talk about who could play. Could it be Kadarius Toney? A lot coming up. Thanks for making us your first listen. Check out another Locked On show for your next one. We're part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for free on every platform. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, NFL 33 and RGR Football.
And I'm Chris Clark. Thank you all for listening. We really do appreciate it. And this is a get right game for Kansas City. They need to focus for the next 5 weeks. They need to be ready to go, and they need to be ready to go against this Broncos team. While they don't have a potent offense, they do have a very good defense, and that could be problems. I still think that we will talk about that a little bit later, but we'll get into our predictions later. But I'm looking forward to it. It's Red Friday. I'm ready to turn the page.
Yeah, and I know folks have been all week. It's been like a slow roll to get back into football gear. A lot of people just had to step away for a while because of disappointment, and I understand that. But this opponent this week is a whole lot different than last week. This team lost to a contender, a team that obviously has given this team trouble, but has given other teams trouble, and quite frankly, might be the hottest team in the NFL right now in the Cincinnati Bengals. The Denver Broncos are about as polar opposite from that as you get.
Yeah, and the Cincinnati Bengals probably have one of the top wide receiver cores, if not the top wide receiver core in the NFL. I will say that again, because I really do truly believe that their top three is probably the best wide receivers, 1 through 3, at least in my opinion, in the NFL. And that's very difficult to defend, which allows them to run the ball a little bit better than I think they should have been able to, because Kansas City was trying to stop the pass, at least to an extent.
Yeah, I mean, they're always trying to stop the pass. One guy that'll help them do that, at least in the short area, is that Nick Bolton is back. He was limited in practice yesterday with a groin, limited today, but he is out there. That's a positive sign. I think they used what was a model in Cincinnati to attack with the running backs because of the depth of what Nick Bolton and the second-tier defenders were dropping to. I think that changes a little bit this week, and that's something that I think not only Nick, but honestly, Willie Gay as well. Darius Harris was out there a little bit. Need to see Leo Chenal this week a little bit. I think Latavius Murray is going to be part of the Broncos game plan. I think he has to be, quite frankly. And somebody might have to spy Russ, because I think there's desperation in Denver, to tell you the truth, and it might turn to Russ's legs. Having Nick Bolton back is going to be key, and I'm feeling pretty good about where he's at. Are you?
Groin injury is kind of tricky. We'll see if he practices in full on Friday. As of this recording, it was, like Ryan said, it was a limited practice. If he's not able to go, you have to wonder who they're going to put in there as your middle linebacker. You would think maybe it could be Chenal, but it could also be Darius Harris. I know that they want to get Darius Harris on the field. That's why you see him in there sometimes as opposed to Willie Gay. So interesting to watch that. You got to hope that Bolton plays. He's playing very well for the most part. That was a rough game for him against the Bengals, but a lot of that is stuff that he does not do well, and that is going to be a place that Kansas City struggles.
One thing, whoever is going to start for the Kansas City Chiefs at middle linebacker, hopefully today, maybe probably not tomorrow, but hopefully today, they practice tackling. That might be a good concept to do. You get a little bit of that. It's more than just hitting the donut. You got to do more. And I think after the lumps that they took last week, I think one of the things the Denver Broncos can do is run the ball. So I do expect them to come out and try to attack that way. It has to be more than the linebacker level that defends that, though. And with the addition, Brandon Williams is near the roster. Taylor Stallworth has been released. Do you think that signals that they're going to try to actually take away the run a little bit more this week?
Quite possibly. I mean, Brandon Williams is now on the roster. They activated him. He is on the roster. They brought back Austin Ryder to the practice squad, which, okay. But with Williams on the roster, I mean, I think that signals probably good things for the Chiefs DT rotation, especially when you're starting to talk about stopping the run. It'll be interesting to see what else he can bring to this defense, though.
Yeah, I mean, one guy that they won't have a chance to go against. At least it doesn't sound like it right now. For all you K-State fans, doesn't look like Dalton Reiser is going to be able to go. He has not practiced this week. I think that's pretty significant. Tom Compton is out as well for them. It was a limited practice on Thursday. But, in terms of getting right a little bit on the interior defensive line, I think that's an opportunity there.
Yeah, definitely is. And the Broncos have a lot of injuries that they're dealing with right now. Cortland Sutton doesn't sound like he's going to play on the outside. That's going to be an issue. Jerry Jeudy's still recovering from an injury as well. KJ Hamler's on IR. Their weapons are going to be depleted. So when you start looking at their passing options, it's not going to be the normal Broncos passing attack that's really hasn't been good in any way, regardless of who's been out there. But they're going to be struggling a little bit more this week because of who they have to play.
That's absolutely true. And there's a couple things that'll go into how they choose to attack it this week based on those matchups. But first, this show is brought to you and sponsored by BetterHelp Therapy Online. You want to check this out because it's something you got to get right and get your whole thing going in one direction, much like this team needs to. You want to make sure that you're all on the same page, that you're dealing with what you have, whether it's confidence, whether it's understanding, coping with the cognitive things that you have to go through, whether on the football field or in your life every day. You want something that helps. And BetterHelp has connected over 3 million people to licensed therapists. It's convenient, secure, and accessible anywhere because it's 100% online. Everyone deserves to feel their best, and BetterHelp makes it easier to get started. The world's largest therapy service. That's 3 million all on online therapists. All the benefits of physical therapy, but it's more convenient, it's more accessible, and it's more affordable. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist. And if you don't click or whatever, you can easily change therapists with a click of a button. There's no waiting rooms, no traffic, and no endless searching for the right therapist. Get unstuck with BetterHelp. Learn more and save 10% off your first month when you go to betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's betterhelp.com/lockedon. Now, the big takeaway for me is you got to go with what works. For the Kansas City Chiefs, that's a little easier said than done, to tell you the truth. A lot works for the Chiefs. For the Broncos, that's not really the case. And I know you had a good conversation with Sarah from the Broncos team, but I'm sorry, from the Broncos show, that not part of the team. I should actually not say that. But it comes down to me, like, as I take a step back, what will work for them and what can you do to maximize that? And for them, it seems like, especially with Latavius Murray, it's about running to the right. It is taking on that particular one. That means a couple of things. So Chris Jones generally lines up on the right-hand side of the defense, meaning he would not be facing those kinds of runs. So if it is Brandon Williams, you get, hey, fresh goes. It's going to be Colin Saunders and Derek Nottie as well. But also, it's got to be George Karlaftis, who I think has been undervalued, underappreciated playing the run this year.
Yeah, and that is going to be something that you're going to definitely have to watch. I think that the big thing going into this game, and something that Frank Clark has always done, I think, very well for Kansas City, that he's never really gotten that much credit for, is the way he plays the run, and that is very important. And if you want to be a good run defense, you have to play the run. You have to be able to shut down the lanes on the outside and keep people going inside of the defensive end. So if Karlaftis is able to continue going down the path that he's on and continue to be a strong run defender, I think that's going to set a good precedence for Kansas City moving forward beyond this game and this year.
Yeah, it's just a start. I think we've seen him come on lately. He's had a couple of sacks in a couple of games here lately. Do you think that continues, given that what he's expected to see in terms of like game plan, like volume of pass rushes, is likely to be lower this week than it's been the last couple of weeks?
I think it continues. I think he's showing that he's an ascending player, and I think that that's what's important. He needs to continue to play and play hard. The big question that you have with a guy like Karlaftis, and you have this with any of the rookies, is are they going to hit a rookie wall? You flip it over the other side. Pacheco is another guy that you have to worry about just because of how much he's playing. Is he going to hit a rookie wall? Because he's not been playing this many games. He's not used to it. It's a different toll on your body. So that's going to be something to watch. And then you have a lot of rookie corners, which, that's going to be interesting as well. You start looking at these matchups for this game, and one of the fun matchups that I thought I was going to be looking forward to is Cortland Sutton against these corners, but he's probably not playing. So the bigger question is what is their passing attack going to look like? And if it's going to be, a bunch of practice squad guys or guys that are being called up because you have a bunch of injuries, then you're going to be looking at a guy like Greg Dulcich that is going to create a mismatch issue for Kansas City. How does Kansas City stop him, and how do they attack the rest of the defense? Because I think you can afford to go one-on-one with the rest of the Denver pass catchers for the most part, but he's going to be an issue.
Yeah, that's my concern as well. But there are a couple of creative ways you can deal with that. When I take a look back to last week, obviously Hamler's been out for a while. They lost him Patrick early in the season. Jerry Jeudy now, if he's nursing and Sutton's out still, I mean, there isn't much left to go around. It's Kendall Hinton maybe. I'm looking down their depth chart. I'm not seeing much more there.
Well, I know, and you could go one-on-one with those guys, so you feel good about that. But the question is Kansas City struggles against the tight end still. They don't have that guy that can lock a tight end down.
I got a guy.
Where they're going to have to focus. Okay, let's do it.
I got a guy, and his name is L'Jarius Sneed. If you're not going to have 3 wide receivers you have to take, put L'Jarius on Dulcich. Dulcich is a great athlete, but L'Jarius is better. Dulcich has a great reach and wingspan, target area. L'Jarius is better. Like I feel very, very confident about at least initially being able to lock him up. Now, the problem is going to be if they get into sending L'Jarius, then what you do. Because I know Spags is Spags, and I know he's going to blitz whether he needs to or not. So it is going to be about the volume in which L'Jarius is not in coverage, but actually in pass rush.
Yeah, no, and that's a great question. And I think you start looking at the other matchups that are going to really be key in this. And to me, it's continuing for Kansas City to get other people involved in the offense. I've liked what I've seen from Juju. I'm glad that he's back. I didn't like him going to the sideline last week, but I'm glad he's able to come back in the game of play. So continuing to get him involved, continuing to try to get MVS more involved, but really continue to do what you've been doing with Sky Moore. Get him involved in this game. Get him used in this game plan, because I think that you're going to need it with these corners that the Denver Broncos have. These Chiefs wide receivers are going to have a tall task to get open and be successful.
Yeah, and I think it's key for young guys like Sky Moore to get a little bit of experience. It's one thing to ask Juju or MVS with the experience to go up against Pat Surtain. Pat Surtain is elite. Let's be clear. That's no slouch. But the other guys are still pretty good. Elite. Yeah, I mean, top 5. That is a heck of a number. The other guys are still fairly good. You can take different angles on that depending on what you've seen, what kind of defense you want to play. But particularly if they're going to use the motions, if they're going to use the drags, I think that you can get Sky involved, and that will help. I think Watson has the ability, because of his size, not only with his speed, that he has an opportunity here as well. You got to mind Justin Simmons in the back all the time. But I think the guy that I'm most encouraged about, and I don't think he has to play a heavy snap count because he's coming off of a hamstring injury, but Kadarius Toney is back at practice. Can he play? Can he contribute? I think he is the kind of guy, in particular, with his stop-start ability, to make a couple of plays, get off the field, not make it a huge volume of snaps for him, but he can make an impact on the game with, say, maybe 15 snaps.
And that would shock me, but if I'm Kansas City, unless he's a full participant on Friday and they feel great about it, I'm not putting him in this game. To me, you save him until you think he's 100% ready, because he is a guy that is going to continue to have hamstring issues. It just seems to be plaguing him throughout his career, and hopefully we can figure out the Kansas City Chiefs can figure out a way to help him get over that. But to me, this is not a game he has to play for them to be able to win. None of the next 5 are. It's all about getting healthy for the playoffs. And to me, I don't play him unless they think that it's not going to be something that he can easily re-aggravate. And I understand what you're saying about the 15 snaps. I agree with you on that part. He could make a big impact in just those snaps, but it's something to watch.
Yeah, it is. And when you're protecting Pat, especially because Pat's coming off of a foot bruise, you got to be mindful of that. A couple of guys that are making some hay in terms of producing pressure. Jacob Martin, a name that is not widely known, that has been helping out at the left end spot. Subsequenting Draymond Jones, who's been playing well, and Baron Browning, the outside linebacker, who I didn't have a great grade on coming out because he was asked to play backwards a lot in college, not his thing, but playing forwards, he is becoming a better pass rusher that you have to account for. I don't think he deserves the Bradley Chubb chip that Chiefs have used in the past, but it is something you got to make sure that you're aware of and get squared away. So there is some pressure there. Does that end up paying off? I'm not 100%. I'm convinced of that, but we're going to talk about that and what's going to happen coming up next. But first, a word from our pals over at PrizePicks, because right now these lines are really interesting. And the way PrizePicks works is they set a line. You choose whether a given player produces more or produces less, and you just choose that. 2 to 5 entries, create an entry for you. Right now, the line on Patrick Mahomes is 270 yards because, quite frankly, he shouldn't have to throw that much. The line on Russell Wilson is 210. So the question becomes, do you think that Patrick has enough opportunity or enough need to go over that 270? You choose that. Same thing with Russ. You put those entries in, they're fast, they're safe, they're quick to get paid out. They're available in 30 states plus Canada, and the withdrawals are safe. All you got to do is go to PrizePicks and get the app. You can go to any app store. You can go to prizepicks.com. You sign up to play daily fantasy sports, pick your more or less, get 5 entries in there, and use our code Locked On. Then when you make a deposit, you get 100% of that on top of it. So if you deposit 50, you get 50. If you deposit 100, you get 100. If you deposit 1,000, you still only get 100. So there is a limit. But just saying, use that code Locked On at prizepicks.com. And when it comes back down to who matches up where, there's a number of things that I think have to happen. One, we have to see the safeties play better. This has to be a recovery week for the Kansas City safeties. Now,
Absolutely.
that said, if Sutton goes, that changes things dramatically. Otherwise, if you're not going to run Snead, this might be a payback or a get right game for Justin Reed, because he should have then opportunities to cover Dulcich, who's going to be their primary target. Maybe he has a chance to take the ball away.
Yeah, and you definitely need you need to get right game from the safeties. Honestly, you need to get right game from pretty much the middle of the defense behind the defensive line. They struggled at linebacker and at the safety positions last week, and that's something that you have to get figured out for the playoffs. And like you said earlier, it kind of makes sense as to why the linebackers struggled at times, because they were so far back. They were dropping into zones, or at least trying to drop into zones, and they're not. That is not Nick Bolton's best scenario or position. So something to think about going forward with him when you're playing the Bengals. But you look at this game, and I think the safeties have a chance of getting right in this game because there are no real huge threats. I mean, you have Dulcich. That's their big threat right now. They have one, and he's not on the same par as a big threat for Kansas City right now. Like Juju, I think, is still a big threat for Kansas City. Mm-hmm. I don't put Dulcich on that par. I think he is a little bit lower, maybe more like an MBS type threat, but he's their best threat right now, assuming we know the guys that are going to be out with injuries.
Mm-hmm. Now, if Judy and Sutton are back, the three of them, you can do things with Dulcich like split him out, much like Travis Kelce. So you get him almost as a big slot.
Yeah.
And that changes
things.
Yeah, absolutely. So that said, I can look to them to go a little bit more zone, try to break on the ball. I think Russ is going to give you opportunities for turnovers, and that's the key right now. Is I need to see that produced. I think they do. And as this game boils down, I see a couple of things happening. You try to spread the ball around, get everybody back on the good side for Patrick Mahomes, keep pressure off of Patrick, deliver the ball early. Don't do what you did last week and always look for the home run ball. Keep things tight, and I expect that to happen. I want to see a little bit more. I don't know if there's going to be revenge involved, but I'd like to see Melvin Gordon active for this one. See what happens. If the Chiefs are going to give up a turnover, I think this is probably the game that they can afford to do it. So I do want to see a little bit of that. But in the end, I just don't see how Russ and his offense against a battered Chiefs defense that has to really make up for themselves, I just don't see how they can keep up. So in the end, I think they try valiantly. They probably outscore more than they've done lately against other teams, but I still see this as a 31-17 win for the Chiefs.
Yeah, and I'm going to go with my score yesterday that I used on the crossover, and I'm going to go 27-13. And I say that because this is a good Denver defense, and we have to give them credit for being a good defense. They are that. So the question is can Kansas City execute? And they've struggled at execution the past couple of games at times. So that's going to be something to watch. I will say this, though. You start looking at what this game could mean for Kansas City, and the big thing for me is if they're able to actually go out there and put 35 on this team, this offense is going to get right itself. And that's just as important as the defense getting right.
Yeah. They have a stretch here. They need to get off to a good start and run it out. That's going to be key to where they lie in the overall standings for the AFC and the seed that comes from that. So that's what we're going to have our eye on. Let us know what you're going to be watching in the comments down here below on YouTube. Please make sure that you get subbed. And if you would give us a thumbs up for this one, we would very much appreciate it. Spread the word and let folks know that you can watch us too. Also, you want to be on the audio platforms because that's our bread and butter. That's where we started, and that's where we'll always be. So check that out. Let us know your prediction for this ball game. You can hit us at Locked On Chiefs on Twitter as well. We'd love to hear from you. Hit us in the Spotify reviews. That always helps, and we do appreciate your time and listening to us today. Enjoy your weekend, and get ready to feel better about this team come Sunday evening. We'll be live for you post-game. Don't miss that. Thanks for listening today. We'll talk to you